Okay, welcome back to day 12. That's what it is. Yesterday we started making the U-turn, the return, the official practice, as we said. And today we embark on a new level of needs. And this need today is the need of contribution. And it's in contribution where we become of service. And when we become of service, we start to see ourselves reflected in others, in our environment, and we begin to self-actualize, meaning we begin to understand who we truly are beyond that which we think, that which we do, and that which we physically present as. And this is exciting if you have the spirit and heart of an explorer, which I think every single one of you here has, because you wouldn't have lasted more than 2 days doing the 21-day guided journaling if you didn't. So I'm very excited about today's conversation around contribution, which I'm going to try to keep rather brief, because I want most of the exploration and thoughts around this to come from you. And something that I've noticed that is exciting to me is that as the days have been going on, there has been a little bit more interaction in the group. And I believe this is because there is a little bit more clarity and there's something that is starting to crack open. And whatever it is that's cracking open for you, what it's showing you is exactly what you need to see. And that's really the basis of what meeting the need of contribution beyond ourselves has in store for us. Now, contribution, the word itself is the gift or payment of sorts to a fund, a collective, or a person. And the word contribution, when we look at it from the Latin origin, it also means to bring together. So when we're thinking about contribution, I also want you to think about how your contribution unites. I was just thinking about the Olympics today. I love the Olympics, and something that I've been wrestling with is all the negativity that is coming from the media when talking about the Olympics, complaining about the beds, complaining about COVID, complaining about all the unfortunate byproducts that exist in not only organizing the Olympics, but the current state of our evolution with the pandemic and other social reforms that we are currently experiencing. There's so much negativity, but if you are able to look past the sensational news and media, there's a message there. And this message is a message of uniting us. In fact, the slogan is united by emotion. And an emotion, as we've talked about here, is there where your mind and your body meets. And the Olympics is the proving ground for that in the form of sports. So as I'm thinking about the Olympics, I'm thinking about how is the Olympics contributing, positive and negative? And specifically, how is it contributing to the person who is the spectator, the observer? And why am I thinking about it from the perspective of the observer? Well, because a lot of the work that we are doing here is the work of observation. And observation, although neutral, can have an impact when acted upon. And what we're seeing at the Olympics is pure action. And I'm going to personally use, as I did when I was a kid, I'm going to use the fire that comes from this emotion to fuel my own. And I hope that if you watch the Olympics, you can live that, but that you notice that you have your Olympics around you at all time. It's happening in your personal practice. It may be happening in your work. It may be happening in your family. And if you don't know where it's happening, I encourage you to find that, to observe and see where that is in you. As wherever that is, that's where the act of contribution is happening. Now, contribution is gifting or making a payment. It's offering something that adds value to another person or a group. And how does it happen? Well, it happens through service. And a question I want us to ask ourselves today and have as a centering thought is, what does my service look like? Furthermore, what does my service feel like? And when thinking about service here, maybe ask yourself an even simpler question, which is, how can I help? This is a question I would get very often, um, and it started happening around 2010. And I would start getting emails and messages asking me, how can I help you, Carl? And the reason I was starting to get these questions was because at that point in my career, around 2009, 2010, 2011, I was having what some people would call success. People were starting to recognize my efforts and celebrating them in a way that was putting some eyes on me and attention on me. And I started receiving these messages, and these messages were offering up their services, but there were no real specifics coming through. So at first, my answer was to simply ask them, "What were you thinking? How do you think you can contribute?" And the majority, I would say 95% of people would respond with, "No, whatever you need, you tell me." So I started making a list. And at that time, what I needed was I needed somebody to book my flights. I needed somebody to book my hotels. I needed somebody to manage my influx of emails. I needed somebody to um, organize my life in a way that made my availability for doing more of that which was of service possible. And the responses I would get were, well, I'm not interested in that. Okay, then why were you asking me how you could help? And this is where a lot of people struggled. They did not know. But in a nutshell, what they were looking for was two things. One, they felt a true meaningful connection with whatever I was sharing. And they wanted to be a part of that fire. They wanted to be a part of that emotional state that they were seeing from a distance. And two, they were looking to advance themselves. The tragic part about this is that although I reflected this back to the people who were reaching out to me, there was an inability to recognize the need to not only belong to something, but also to achieve, to advance. And there's nothing negative or uh, that comes from a place of ill will, that comes with the need for achievement, accomplishing, doing more, being more. This is something that somehow has been demonized. And the reason, one of the reasons at least it's been demonized, is because when you begin to achieve a lot of stories begin to form around you. And if you become those stories, then your ego starts to outweigh who you truly are, your true intention, your true meaning. And this is why talking about contribution is so important. And in addition to that, it's not only how we contribute, but it's also how we allow other people to contribute to ourselves. And this is something that I learned maybe a decade ago. and I fully started to embody it when I noticed that if I would go out for dinner, and some of you guys have heard this story before. Uh, Imagine if you've heard it before, how many times I've heard it. I would go out for dinner with friends, and I was living at a time where uh, I was receiving a lot. So I had a lot of resources coming my way in abundance, almost to the point where I didn't know what to do with all that abundance. And some of that abundance came in the form of money, finances. My bank account was very full. So if I would go out for dinner with friends, I would always at the end feel the urge to pay for everybody who was there. And I started doing this unconsciously. I just felt like first giving, and then I felt like giving felt good. So I became a little addicted to it. And then eventually it became a habit. And over time, that habit started feeling a little empty. And I remember being in the car with my wife driving home. And I told Tanya, I said, I don't know why. I mean, at the end of dinner, people don't even try to pull their wallets out if I'm around. And she's like, yeah, you have taught them how to treat you. You have taught them how to serve you. And this, as obvious as it may sound, was such a shock for me. I didn't realize that this thing that I was doing from the goodness of my heart was actually being detrimental to my well-being. And I thought, okay, next time I go out for dinner, I'm going to wait a little bit, and I'm not going to pull out my wallet right away. And then if something is said, I'll say, hey, shall we split it? And the time came, I was prepared. I went out for dinner with some friends. We were sitting there at the end. The bill comes, the check comes. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to sit on my wallet. I'm not going to pull it out. I'm not going to pull it out. I'm not going to pull it out. Everybody just keeps talking. And nothing happens. And eventually it gets dragged out so far that I start to wonder, wait a second, do I have to say something? Do I have to end this? Do I have to tell people to pull their wallet out? How am I going to get out of this one? And what did I do? Well, I pulled out my wallet and I paid. Shit. I did it again. And I remember driving home in utter shame because I could not advocate for myself. And that's when I realized that I was unable to clearly express what I needed. I didn't need for somebody to pay for my meal. I didn't need for somebody to contribute to my life. I simply needed acknowledgement of fairness or balance, harmony, coherence. And I had no clue how to ask for that until one day I finally mustered up the courage. And at the end of dinner, I said, shall we split it? And to my surprise, it was, of course. And then boom, there we were, splitting the bill. And for the first time in my life that I can remember, I felt so empowered because I was able to advocate for myself. And this is something that I've continued to try to do in the rest of my life. And sometimes it works well and sometimes it doesn't. But I've found a truth that seems to live up to the standard of it across the board. And that is to always give a little bit more than you expect to receive. I've shared this example before, but when I had this website called Gymnastics Squad that I was using to share some of these daily programs, that started to gain a lot of traction. And eventually people couldn't access it that didn't have good access to Wi-Fi and internet at the time. Believe it or not, that was a thing. That we got to a point where we decided to burn some DVDs, and we decided to put these DVDs out for free because the content already lived for free on the website. And one day we just decided we were going to ask for people to set their own price and see what would happen. And $1 led to $10 to $20 to even $500 for a DVD for information that already lived out there for free. And I was scratching my head wondering, how is it possible that this thing that is already there for free is able to generate such financial wealth? And the answer was simple. It was effort, it was intention, and it was always providing more than you expected to be provided for. And you would be surprised. And I was definitely surprised. And this is something that I share because every single one of us is contributing to this world in different ways. And we must identify how we are contributing and what needs we are not only getting met for others, but also for ourselves. And when we get those needs met, how are we going to work with them? And this kind of goes in line with the language that we use for service. And I'm just thinking right now about the love languages, and who knows how true this is. But if you've read the book, The 5 Love Languages, you know that there's the language of acts of service. This is you serving other people in whatever way or capacity that you can. There are gifts. You like to gift things to people. There are words of affirmation. There is physical touch. And then I am forgetting one that I can't think about right now. Quality time. I think that's the one. Anyways, these love languages are simply buckets to that we can use to compartmentalize these services. And when we have these buckets, or this ability to compartmentalize how we serve, we can find clarity in the way that we express them. And that's something that I'm looking for today in our journaling, and something that we're going to explore. And the way that we're going to explore this is by doing what we've been doing for the last 4 days, and starting with the usual. Valence-Arousal Model, describe how you're feeling, get granular, your BOLT score, your sleep status, continue to think about the dreaming, and then getting into the meat and potatoes of today, which is we're going to address 4 areas of our lives. 1, our family. 2, our friends. 3, what we would consider our work environment. And 4, the planet. When it comes to our family, in this bucket, what we're going to ask ourselves is, what roles do we play? Mother, father, spouse, son, daughter, brother, sister. What roles do we play? And in those roles, how are we contributing? How are we contributing to that relationship? Just allow it to rip. Write about it. It doesn't have to be specific. It can be simply expressive. Just express how you think you contribute and how it feels. In your friends bucket, you're going to ask yourself the simple question, what do I bring to the table? How do I contribute? I used to think what I brought to the table was paying for dinner. But what was it really that I was doing in that type of contribution? Was it something that was filling my cup, emptying my cup? Where was the balance? How were people receiving it? What do I contribute? Maybe recall a memory, share a memory, write about that. For your work bucket or work environment, I want you to define your current role. Even if you work alone and you are in freelance, or you're a writer or an artist or a photographer or a trainer or a coach, write what your role is in whatever it is that you're doing. And I want you to define it with detail. And then I want you to ask yourself, how does what you do, your role, how does it serve? How does it serve the people that you work with? And this can range from your coworkers, your colleagues, and to your clients if you have them. And then finally, the fourth bucket is the planet. How do you currently contribute to the planet? How do you serve the planet? And this one is interesting if you allow yourself to go down the rabbit hole, because you'll realize that this planet will only contribute as much to you as you are willing to contribute to it. And the contribution that you may think is the contribution that the planet needs is not necessarily it. I'll just leave it at that. So allow your thoughts around this contribution to your planet to just wander off into wherever your writing takes you. And it will probably be influenced by the previous prompts. So contribution, service, and why is this important? Well, the biggest thing about contribution or being of service is that when you learn to be of service, you learn to understand, how you need to be served. What you need in terms of service from other people. And knowing what we need, understanding that which we need, being able to express that which we need clearly is that which gets us to a higher level of not only awareness, but health. And this health, because it is functional, is health that can be considered fitness. Okay. Any questions on today's journaling or the concept of contribution? Let's see. Keith says, there you go. Yeah, you all add value to my day. Thank you for being here. Yeah, thank you for being here, Keith. Yeah, we couldn't be doing this. We couldn't be doing any of this unless you were showing up. I would be speaking to a void. The only reason some of my words have any value is because they resonate to some degree with all of you who are here. And you are translating the word that I'm saying into something that is valuable to you. And then hopefully that resonates to those around you. Yep, so no questions here. I think that concludes day 12, and I think we can call it a successful session, as I was 7 minutes faster than other days. Maybe that means that I was 7 minutes more clear and simple and hopefully compelling. Other than that, we are now on the home stretch. Everybody knows this. As we are on the home stretch and questions start to arise, please feel free to share those. Message me privately, message in the comments section under each post. Feel free to connect with others, see how they are doing. Having that kind of rapport with others will help you continue forward with the process. As we go now into the final stretch, I just encourage you to keep going. The resistance that you were meeting maybe in the last couple of days, once you can break through this, you'll see a new level of momentum. And that momentum will translate beyond the 21 days. And it may actually be the seed that starts to produce that which you were looking for when you first decided to join. Okay, that's it. Now, I'll be quiet until tomorrow, I think. Much love, everybody. Happy journaling, and I'll see you at the same time. Hasta luego.